Don't you just love the beginning of a horror story? The promise of everything to come, meeting all the characters and laying the groundwork and snuggling up to the hint of all the horrors about to befall them. It's my favorite. And then I tend to get bored. Maybe not bored, just impatient. And here we are, about to land at the sticky middle of our cul-de-sac tale, and this is where I've struggled the most. I mean, that's not true. The wrapping up of everything at the end was a bear, but the middle and everything that comes after is tricky. I've said it before, this whole podcast, this whole mess was my attempt to learn to write, and I've gone and dragged all of you along with me. This book was rejected more times than I care to admit, and we're about to hit the really messy part. But if you've been here for a while, you know that sometimes I'm able to skate by on vibes. Let's just hope I can pull it off this time. In my defense, the middle of the story is notoriously sticky, and the writing advice trick I took was to pull all my characters together, throw a party for them, and see what happens. So, here we go. Chapter 36. I sipped my wine as I watched Tom study the neighborhood plan. His brow furrowed, he said, "This was just at the library?" "It was in that local collection I told you about. I wanted to see if I could find anything about the cul-de-sac, and I found it while I was sorting through everything." "And you went out there with Lucky," he said, staring at the black windows across the kitchen. "It was incredibly creepy. None of them knew about the cemetery. They all claimed they didn't know anything about it." He looked back down at the plan. "I can't believe you actually went and found this." I was about to defend myself, but he looked up and smiled at me. "Walking, talking Google." I smiled back, feeling my defenses come down for the first time in what felt like days. "I've been thinking about you, about us, all day," he admitted. "I'm sorry for everything." No, listen," he insisted. "This move has been a lot. I've been so wrapped up in work that I haven't really considered how it must be for you out here. You're not at the library anymore, and you've been on your own handling all these renovations." "In a haunted house," I pointed out. "In a haunted house," he agreed. "Look, I know I got a little manic after that break-in. I just wanted you out of that apartment and safe. I wasn't thinking clearly." "Neither of us were," I offered. "Right, but you're right. I should have talked through the offer on this house with you before I made it, and I should have explained all the neighborhood association shit. I wanted to fix things." He came around the island and sat on the stool beside me. "But it looks like I managed to get us in an even shittier situation." "Out of the fire pan into the fire," I agreed. He smiled. "I'm really sorry. I haven't handled things better." "You couldn't have anticipated any of this," I sighed, motioning to the neighborhood plan. "But I just want to be able to talk to you. I don't want you to shut me down every time I bring up what's happening here." He leaned in and kissed me. "Deal." And I was thinking, we should go look at cars this weekend. You shouldn't be stuck here all the time. You could take that volunteer job at the library. "Yeah, well, I pretty much organized my way out of the position today when I was looking for information. There's probably only like an hour or two of work left." "You just can't help yourself," he laughed. "Well, the offer stands. We'll look at cars whenever you're ready." "Thanks," I said. We both looked back at the plan. So, the cemetery. Wild. "How can it possibly be legal to bury people smack dab in the middle of a neighborhood and not tell anyone about it?" I demanded. "Don't your real estate rules say anything about this?" Tom laughed. "My real estate rules might say something about disclosure, but if the seller didn't know about the existence of the cemetery and our lawyer didn't uncover anything during due diligence, then I don't think we can make a claim. It seems like those graves were just forgotten over the years." "Seems like we missed a lot of key information," I griped. "I can't even describe how awful that place is. I was thinking I could call town hall tomorrow and find out who we can talk to about having the graves moved." "Are you crazy?" "What? Haven't you ever watched a horror movie? I don't think digging up old graves makes angry ghosts any less angry." I rolled my eyes. "Well, we have to do something." We stared at the plan for a time, each lost in our own thoughts. Finally, he said, "The whole sin thing, though." "What about it?" He shook his head. "It's just so spot on." I kicked at his foot with mine. "It's spot on that we're envious?" You have to admit the others are pretty much bullseyes, so yeah, maybe we're more envious than we realize. Speak for yourself, I muttered. He stood and brought his empty wine glass to the sink. I need to decompress. I'm going to head down and chill at my workbench for a bit. Tom, wait. He paused, hand already on the basement doorknob. I talked to Virginia this morning, before I went to the library. When he turned towards me, the look on his face actually made me pull back in my seat. What exactly did you tell her? He asked in a low voice. She knew the house was haunted. After her coworker showed it to the Molochs, she heard something growl at her from the attic and saw a ghost in the kitchen. I told her, how could you do that after I specifically asked you not to say anything? I can't ignore what's happening. I can't pretend everything's fine just so you can keep your reputation intact with people we don't even know. Those people we don't know, they pay for this house, May. How do you think it'll look if it gets around that my crazy wife is running around telling people that our house is haunted? I met his eyes and saw that he knew he'd gone too far. The cat's out of the bag, I spat. Every house in this fucking cul-de-sac is haunted, Tom. Besides, I think you'd be more concerned that Virginia hid information from us. He rubbed his face with both hands, that dramatic gesture again. Look, just let me handle it, okay? Can we at least call our lawyer to look over everything? I asked. He shook his head in exasperation. I can't live like this. I can't just sit here and do nothing, waiting for whatever's next. We're not moving. He said it so quietly I could barely hear him. We'll find another house, I said, basically pleading with him. We moved after the break-in. We can move again. You're not listening. We're not moving because we can't move, unless we want to bankrupt ourselves paying lawyers' fees for years just to ultimately lose. We're just going to have to find a way to make it work. Chapter 37. The disembodied footsteps began early the next morning. We lived in a haunted house, so I suppose that was par for the course. But it didn't make it any less unnerving. I was drying off from the shower, careful not to aggravate my hands any more than I absolutely had to because they were getting closer to tolerable, when I heard the footsteps overhead. Assuming Tom was in the attic, I barely made note of it, except to think he was being awfully dramatic, thumping around up there. We hadn't spoken since our disagreement the night before, and I wondered if he'd decided to relocate his workbench to the 3rd floor. But when I made my way downstairs to refill my coffee mug, I was shocked to see him at the kitchen island, hunched over his laptop. He looked up as I stepped into the room. What's wrong? He asked. I thought you were in the attic. Why? I heard... I trailed off. I'll give the exterminator a call this morning. His tone forcibly light. I nodded. Sam's coming to fix the attic door today. Would you have him take a look at the living room built-ins? Why? The books were all over the floor when I came down this morning. I wonder if the shelves aren't totally level. I sipped my coffee to keep from suggesting that we both knew the shelves weren't the problem. He closed his laptop and grabbed his keys from the counter. I'm in the office most of the morning, then out on tours, if anything comes up. I'll be fine, I huffed, barely concealing my anger. Maybe I could give you a ride into town, to the library. We could have lunch together. Sam's coming, I said, turning away from him. So I have to be here, right? Later that morning was Sam upstairs fixing the attic door. I carried a pile of Olive's journals out onto the patio, hoping I might find something, anything that could offer answers about the neighborhood. It was cold and gray, and despite a persistent chilly breeze, I forced myself to stay outside, wrapped in a fleece blanket on the rickety old beach chair. The woods were pretty in their fall colors, if a bit ominous. Olive's handwriting was a swirl of tight, loopy cursive. Most of her writing covered the mundane day-to-day of her life. I couldn't focus. Resentful thoughts circled round and round in my mind. Tom got to continue his career without interruption, stay out of the house all day, drive the damn car whenever he wanted, and there I was, stuck in the house like some 1950s housewife, without the new appliances and Valium to keep me even vaguely content. I felt trapped. I didn't like not being able to go where I wanted when I wanted, and I didn't like being out of work. I'd asked Sam to give me a ride into town when he was done. I'd considered biking in, but thought it would aggravate my hands too much. I intended to finish organizing the library collection. I wanted that library job. I wanted out of the house for good, and if we needed money for legal bills to make that happen, then that job might be my ticket. Lost in thought, I jumped when Sam stuck his head out of the front doors. Hey, he said, a bit nervously. Hi, I replied, sensing that he had a question. He hesitated, then said, Cold out. I forced a smile. It is, but the fresh air feels nice. He nodded and stepped all the way out of the house onto the patio. So, what can I help you with? I hedged, confused. Just the attic door and that deadbolt for the basement. Oh, and if you could take a peek at those shelves, it would be great. His brow furrowed. I just heard you calling my name, though. I did my best to keep my face pleasantly neutral. Oh, sorry, wasn't me. Maybe you heard one of the neighbors. But if that had been true, then I would have heard them too. Huh. Sam shoved his hands into his pockets. Sure sounded like you calling for help. I shrugged and tried to look confused. Wouldn't be the first time something strange happened here, would it? What do you mean? I said, taken aback. Ignoring my question, he took in the backyard and the dense woods beyond. You'd be smart to get a strong fence if you plan on having kids. Don't want them wandering off into those woods alone. The coyotes around here get pretty big. I followed his gaze and imagined a pack of coyotes staring back at us from the underbrush and considered retreating to the relative safety of the house. Sam seemed to read my mind. Those dogs won't bother adults, but if it were me, I wouldn't leave a little kid playing out here by themselves. I thought of Kat and Evelyn's boys and made a mental note to mention the coyotes to them. Well, if you don't need me for anything, I guess I'll get back to it. Lock's all set in the basement, and I'm just about done upstairs. He closed the door and disappeared into the house. I scanned the tree line. I could either deal with coyotes creeping around in the woods or the ghosts creeping around in my house, who'd apparently developed the ability to mimic my voice. I wondered what the other women in the neighborhood were doing. They seemed to have mastered the art of living in their haunted homes. I felt ridiculous, like everyone else knew how to handle themselves but me. I remembered that I had agreed to host a party and cringed. I wasn't confident enough to cook a full meal for our neighbors, but I knew I could pull off a cocktail party. Halloween decorations would make up for the fact that we didn't have much furniture or art in the house. To distract myself, I began plotting out some ideas and was typing notes into my phone when the sound of a door slamming made me look up. I saw movement through the trees at the side of our yard and spotted Beretta Reed standing in the middle of her backyard. I pushed myself up from the chair. Unless one of the neighbors had reached out, she didn't know about the cemetery, and I felt that I should tell her. As I approached the line of trees between our properties, my view of her was briefly obscured, and when I caught sight of her once again, I was surprised to find that she'd moved much closer to the forest. I scanned the woods, wondering what she was staring at so intently. Beretta, I called, but the woman didn't give any indication that she'd heard me. I considered slinking away into my own house, but tried again. Mrs. Reed? This time, she turned her head slowly and looked right at me. Her face was expressionless, her eyes blank. I took an involuntary step backwards. Beretta, it's May. May Kane, your next-door neighbor? Are you all right? The woman gave the slightest nod and stretched her mouth into a wide smile that did not reach her blank eyes before turning back to stare at the woods. I was about to ask, "What are you looking at?" when Beretta hunched over, her head facing the ground, her eyes forward, as she scurried straight into the thick underbrush without a word. What in the hell? I whispered, backing towards my house. I fled inside, locking the door behind me. I considered calling Lucky to get Grill Reed's number, but thought better of it. What would I say? Your wife just smiled at me and ran into the woods all weird? I was grateful Sam was still in the house, though what protection he could offer I didn't know. I stood beside the kitchen table, unsure what to do. Slid into a chair, staring out the front window across the street to that awful island. A car passed slowly by the front window, catching my attention. A white car. Beretta's car. I walked to the window, leaning towards the glass for a better view, and watched the Mercedes pull into the Reed's driveway. Moments later, Beretta climbed out from the driver's side and moved purposefully up the walkway to her front door. "You're all set," Sam boomed from the foyer. I screamed. "Oh, geez, I'm sorry, Mrs. Kane," he apologized quickly. I did my best to recover. "No, I'm sorry. I thought I saw. I'm just a little jumpy." "I should know better than to sneak up on people. Sorry," he apologized again, shifting nervously. "I was just coming down to tell you the door is all set." I turned and dug around in a junk drawer at the island counter for my checkbook. "How much do I owe you?" You still need a ride in town? He asked as I handed him the check. Yes, thank you, I replied. Did you get a chance to look at the shelves in the living room? I did, level as can be, and pretty sturdy. I nodded. Thank you, I'll just run upstairs and grab my purse. I'll meet you outside, he replied, heading for the front door. I'd just crossed the threshold to our bedroom when a loud bang echoed throughout the house. I froze, listening. 3 more booms came in rapid succession. It was the attic door. Someone or something was pounding on that door hard enough to knock it right off the hinges again. I forced myself to cross to the bedside table to grab my bag, then scooted downstairs with my back against the wall. There was nothing else to do. Tom wouldn't want to hear it. I couldn't go to my neighbors. They were obviously dealing with their own hauntings. If everyone else in the neighborhood could pretend to ignore the strangeness infesting their homes, then until I found a way to get out of that godforsaken neighborhood, I'd have to try to do the same. I bolted out the front door, and as I turned the key in the lock, I heard a distant boom from inside the house. I turned away and walked deliberately toward Sam's car. He was loading up his tools, and as he closed the trunk, he looked up and met my eyes. You okay? He asked, concerned. I'm fine, I lied. Chapter 38. Tom and I settled into a sort of neutral communication, careful of one another, each still angry but unwilling to dive back into our argument. I accepted that he thought we were stuck with the house, and I refused to accept that reality. I ordered Halloween decorations online and planned an easy hors d'oeuvre menu for the party I'd agreed to host. I stayed out of the house as much as I could during the day, either catching a ride to the library or, because my hands had healed, taking long bike rides. I wasn't too keen on long walks. I didn't want to run into whatever had been pretending to be Beretta. The neighborhood was quiet, eerily so. After the cemetery revelation, I would have thought there'd be more interaction with my neighbors, but unlike me, they had full lives to live, children to raise, jobs that kept them productive and busy. I'd just come across the bridge into the neighborhood one afternoon when I saw Kat pacing in front of her driveway. Her head was down, her hands rested on her hips. She'd obviously just completed a run. Hey, she said happily as I rolled up beside her and hopped off the bike. I've been meaning to text you. How are things? Okay, just trying to keep busy. How is the house? She asked, her expression full of concern. I just shook my head. Our house has been weird too. I think finding the cemetery stirred them up. It'll settle back down, though. You'll see. It always does. I forced a smile. Hope so. I actually talked to Evelyn this morning. She wants to put together a memorial service for those people buried in the cemetery. And Cheryl offered to ask her priest to perform a blessing, and Lucky suggested we set up a fund, with proceeds going to the Woodland Hills Historical Society. Oh, wow, that's all really thoughtful. Yeah, I was going to ask my friend Carol Peterson. I'm pretty sure you met her at book club. She could come out and take photos of the cemetery next week for the Gazette. We can use that to promote the memorial fund. Are you sure that's a good idea? The words were out of my mouth before I had a chance to soften them. Too much? No, sorry. I guess it's just so creepy on that island. I wouldn't want to go back out there, I said, laughing nervously. I hadn't really thought of that, Kat laughed. Okay, scratch the photo idea. Sorry, I apologized again. I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. I think it's really nice to honor those people. Who knows how long that cemetery's been forgotten. Maybe they'll leave us alone if we just acknowledge them, Kat said quietly. Maybe, I replied, doubtful. Then again, Kat went on, maybe we should just have Cheryl's priest skip the blessing and go straight to an exorcism. I forced a laugh. The sound of a car door slamming shut caught our attention, and we both turned to watch Grill back out of his driveway and zoom past us without returning our waves. What a charmer, Kat commented. Has anyone talked to Beretta? She scrunched her nose in distaste. We nominated Lucky to tell her about the cemetery, but I don't know if they've connected yet. The image of Beretta, or the Beretta look-alike, scurrying into the woods filled my mind. I considered telling Kat what I'd seen, but I didn't want her to think I'd gone off the deep end. At the same time, I didn't want the conversation to end. It was so nice to have someone to talk to. Would you like to come over for a coffee? I asked. Oh, man, would I? She enthused. But the sitter leaves in half an hour, and I have to take a shower before she goes. Rain check? Sure, I replied, hiding my disappointment. I'm so excited for your Halloween party. It's exactly what we need to get us all out of this weird funk. Totally, I agreed, feeling loneliness seep in. It's going to be so much fun. Derek and I already picked out our costumes. I haven't even thought about costumes, I admitted. You'll think of something great. Count on me for an hors d'oeuvre, okay? Walking the bike back up our driveway, I stared at the house with a mixture of fear and annoyance. I was mad at myself for not remembering to leave any lights on when I'd left. Tom was due home in about an hour, so I wouldn't have to be home alone for long, though recently being with him felt as good as being alone. He spent his time either glued to his phone or laptop or tinkering in that basement. All was quiet as I walked in the front door. Flipping light switches, I went up to our bedroom and changed into sweatpants and then sprinted back downstairs into the living room. One bright spot was that our furniture had arrived earlier in the week. I grabbed my laptop and flopped down on the couch, turning on the television for background noise, and began scrolling through Pinterest for Halloween party ideas. After a time, I realized the house was quiet. It almost felt normal. Maybe Kat was right. Maybe things would settle down. Soon, I heard Tom's key in the door. "It's me," he called out. "Family room," I called back. He collapsed beside me. "I really like this couch," he said. "How was your day?" "Good. I went on a long bike ride, and I actually ran into Kat on my way home. She said Evelyn is planning on a memorial service for the people in the cemetery." "Huh, really?" "Yeah, Cheryl's going to have her priest do a blessing, and Lucky's planning a memorial fund." "Are you kidding me?" "I thought it was a nice gesture," I said, surprised at his anger. "Who's the memorial fund for? The corpses? God damn it, they need to keep their mouths shut. How will it look if everyone knows that there's a cemetery smack dab in the middle of our neighborhood? Do you know what they'll do to property values?" "What values? No one can move. No one can sell their house." "I'll text Forbes and Adam," he muttered. Disgusted, I said, "You're probably right. It's best if the men handle the situation." "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to slow down and think before we announce to the world that there's a cemetery in the center of the cul-de-sac." "Jesus, Tom, calm down." He stared straight ahead at the fireplace, his jaw clenched, anger rolling off of him. "I can't keep going like this," I said, all the fight leaving me. "I want our quiet life back. We never used to fight, but ever since we've moved here, it's one thing after the other. This house..." "I'm sorry," he scrubbed at his face. "I'm just stressed about work." I sighed. "I don't want to add to your stress. You're not. I feel guilty, and I'm sorry you're unhappy here." We looked at each other and really made eye contact for the first time in days. "I feel like an idiot. We bought a lemon." "A haunted lemon." He smiled, pulling me closer. "It's a little charming, though, right?" "A haunted house and a neighborhood cemetery?" "More like stunning colonial on a quiet street with quiet neighbors." I groaned. "What you working on?" he asked, pointing to my laptop. "Just gathering ideas for the party." He glanced at the screen. "Don't tell me it's a costume party." "Yep. Here we go," he laughed. I smiled, relieved that we felt back to normal, at least as normal as we could be under the circumstances. "I thought I'd go as Bent Neck Lady, and you could be Luke. You can wear normal clothes. I'll just put some dark makeup under your eyes and make you look exhausted." "From Haunting of Hill House?" "Hill House," I corrected. "That's a bit dark, isn't it?" "That's the point. We live in a haunted house. We should dress up as characters from a famous haunted house." I considered a moment. "Unless you want to dress up like a cowboy, and I can go as Sarah Winchester." Tom gave me the side eye. "What exactly goes on in that little head of yours?" "You don't want to know," I laughed. "So what do you think about the costumes?" "You pick. What do you need me to do?" "Stay tuned," I said, closing my laptop. Tom pushed himself off the couch. "You want a drink?" I followed him into the kitchen. "What's all this?" he asked, indicating the Halloween decor that had arrived in the mail. "Party decorations," I explained. He held up a skull in one hand and an oversized spider in the other. "You sure it's a good idea to make this place even scarier than it already is?" "Probably not." He handed me a glass of wine. "Cheers." As we clinked our glasses together, I had the briefest moment of hope. I wasn't going to give up on finding a way out of the house, but Kat said things always settle down. I just have to trust her. Chapter 39. We've got the booze, you bring the booze. Escape your own haunted house and come celebrate Halloween in ours, if you dare. May and Tom Kane, 4 Gehenna Circle, Friday, October 30th, 7 p.m. Costumes encouraged. I emailed the Evite to Tom for his opinion before I sent it out. Do you think we should take out the part about the haunted house thing? He responded. It's the elephant in the room, I said. Might as well call it out. I sent the invitation to our neighbors and turned my attention to party preparations. Closing my laptop and glancing around the kitchen, my eyes fell on several large frames leaning against the front wall. I intended to hang 3 of the prints, black and white images of the fiction stacks in the Boston Public Library, on a wall above our kitchen table. The 4th and largest print, an overhead shot of the Cape Cod beach where Tom had proposed years earlier, would hang opposite on the wall above the sideboard. Wandering into the living room, I wished for a rug for the 1000th time. My eyes fell on the couch, and I decided it could use some throw pillows. Lucky's house was so rich and layered, Kat's cozy and warm. It hit me that I'd invited all of our neighbors to our house, and I began to see it through their eyes. Glancing around, I realized our home had very little personality. I started to feel panicked, preemptively embarrassed at what they might think. Our apartment had had personality. All of our belongings had been collected, chosen, and inherited over the years, but that was all gone. The house was a devastatingly clean slate. Even the books on the shelves, those pretty journals I'd found among all of Talbot's belongings, weren't mine. I returned to the kitchen and grabbed my laptop. I might not have the money to buy anything, but I had Pinterest to create vision boards of what could be. Flipping on the television, I scrolled for a few moments when a low chirping noise caused me to look up. Was it the fire alarm? I muted the TV and listened. The high-pitched chirp of a police siren sounded. I went to the front window and saw an ambulance and a police car parked in front of Cheryl Kingsley's house, lights flashing. Without another thought, I grabbed a jacket, slid into my sneakers, and hurried down the street. There, I found Evelyn speaking with a police officer in Cheryl's driveway. What happened? I called. Evelyn looked truly upset. Oh my God, May! Cheryl fell down the basement stairs. She was down there all night. Oh no, I breathed. Is she all right? Not really. She has a bad concussion and her leg is a mess. They just wheeled her into the ambulance a few minutes ago. I don't know why they haven't left yet. Evelyn spared a nervous glance at the vehicle. My boys are with their nanny, so I'm going to follow along in my car and wait at the hospital until their daughters can get there. Can I do anything? I asked, my arms crossed in front of me against a steady breeze. Actually, yes, she's really worried about her cat, Poppy. Someone needs to feed her. I would do it, but I'm super allergic. I glanced around, praying there was another neighbor to volunteer for the job, but it was just the 2 of us. Even the police officer had disappeared into her car. Of course, no problem, I finally said. You're a lifesaver. Cheryl'll be so relieved. Who found her? I asked. Raiden and Wrecker were playing in our backyard and heard her yelling, thank God. She dragged herself across the basement to the window closest to our house and managed to throw a hammer to break the glass. Evelyn looked stricken. If she hadn't done that, there would have been no way anyone would have heard her. Jesus Christ, I whispered. I know, what a nightmare, right? Evelyn watched the ambulance back out of Cheryl's driveway. Shoot, I'd better go. Here's the key. I got it out from under the mat at the back door. That's how I got inside. Poppy really does need to eat. Cheryl insisted that I check to make sure she was okay. I'll go in now, I assured her. Text me once you get to the hospital, okay? Evelyn reached out and squeezed my arm, then scurried back to her own driveway and jumped into her massive Suburban. I found myself standing alone in front of Cheryl's house. Not only did I not want to go in by myself, I wasn't too fond of cats, and I had absolutely no idea how to care for them. Growing up, my parents had never allowed me to have a pet. You going to lock up? The voice made me jump. Oh, no, I have to feed the cat, I replied to the officer suddenly standing beside me. The woman nodded. Your neighbor's lucky. She didn't break her neck falling down those stairs. Did she say what happened? The officer shifted. I think she was a little delirious by the time your neighbor found her. At any rate, we checked the house top to bottom. It's secure. Did she say someone was in there? I asked, reading between the lines. The doors were locked from the inside. But our neighbor, Evelyn, said she got the key from the mat at the back door. Couldn't someone else have done the same? There were no signs of intruders, and that's not what she... Regardless, I want to assure you that the house is secure. I stared up at the dark windows. What's another couple hours without food, I thought selfishly. It's nice of you to take care of that animal, she said, as if reading my mind. I'm Deirdre Mallory. If anything comes up, don't hesitate to call my cell. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. I accepted the card and watched helplessly as she climbed into her patrol car. She attended to a large tablet attached to the dashboard for a time before pulling away from the house, leaving me alone in the yard, freezing cold and terrified. Chapter 40. I knew my anger was misguided, but at that moment I felt pure rage at Cheryl for owning a pet. I had enough to deal with without having to manage someone else's haunted house. Despite an almost blinding mix of fear and agitation, my conscience kept me from turning tail and running back to my house. I was halfway up the front steps to Cheryl's door when I heard Kat's voice behind me. Did I just see a police car pulling out of the neighborhood? Overwhelmed with relief, I relayed the events of the morning. You can't go in there alone. I'll go with you. Are you sure? Yeah, I was just going out for a run. Derek's working from home today, so he has the kids. Is the door open? Grateful beyond words, I held up the keys. Evelyn gave me these. Thank you. I was feeling really anxious. Kat grinned mischievously. Don't mention it. I've always wondered what the inside of her house is like. Moments later, we stood in Cheryl's foyer. The home carried the same undertone I'd noticed in the other houses in the neighborhood, that subtle, musty tang of mildew in the air. My eyes met Kat's, and we broke into a fit of nervous giggles. Dangly crystal light fixtures? Check. Uncomfortable-looking modern furniture and a gold-framed glamour shot of Cheryl above the fireplace? Check, check. Kat deadpanned. I laughed. Let's find Poppy and get out of here. I bet if we pour food into her bowl, she'll come running, Kat suggested, leading the way into the kitchen. Oh, my goodness, I breathed. I didn't know counters came in that color, Kat said, genuinely shocked. Pink marble countertops were outdone only by the glass-doored cabinets filled to the brim with sparkling crystal vases, glasses, and curios. It's just so much, Kat declared. Good for her. A creak overhead caught our attention, and we stared up at the ceiling. Let's just put the food out and get out of here. Poppy will eat when she's hungry, I said in a low voice. Kat began searching for the food in the cabinets beside the sink, while I went to check the built-in cabinets beside the garage door. Found it, Kat declared moments later, holding up a bag of kibble, then called, Poppy! As I filled a water bowl, I heard an unmistakable creak and turned in horror to see the basement door opening by itself. I screamed and jumped back, splashing water everywhere, as a massive orange cat bounded into the kitchen. Jump scare, Kat laughed nervously. We should close that door. It only took me a second to realize that by we, Kat meant that I should close it. I forced myself to cross the kitchen and quickly slammed it shut. Maybe we shouldn't leave her alone, Kat said anxiously. This time I wasn't taking on the responsibility of the royal we. I'm sure she'll be fine. Dragging her into a strange house might traumatize her even more. You're probably right, Kat conceded, but let's at least turn on some lights for her. 2 days later, I found myself standing in Cheryl's foyer again, this time holding a plate of freshly baked brownies. Hello, I called in a sing-song voice, feeling instantly embarrassed. I'd knocked at the door before using the key to let myself in, knowing Cheryl was in no shape to answer it herself. In here, she called back harshly. I went to the living room. Cheryl, wearing a purple fleece bathrobe, had positioned herself in a wingback chair beside the patio doors. She looked horrible. Dark circles swelled beneath her eyes, and her hair was slicked back into a severe ponytail, making her look gaunt. My gaze fell on the bubblegum pink cast covering her leg from thigh to foot. She caught me taking in the bright hue. Cute, right? What are you holding? Brownies, I said, holding up the plate. I made them this. I'm going to be sitting on my ass for weeks. I don't need to get fat on top of everything else, she snapped. Put them on the counter. My daughters will want them when they finally show up. I asked if she needed anything from the kitchen, and she requested a cup of tea. Go ahead and make yourself one, too. I found tea bags and filled 2 gold-lacquered mugs with piping hot water from the bubbler. I'm sorry I won't make it to your party, she called out. We'll miss you, I called back. I didn't catch her grumbled reply. Carefully handing Cheryl the mug, I said, Please let me know if I can do anything while I'm here. I'm just so sorry about your accident. Accident, she scoffed. That's one way to put it. I was about to ask what she meant when movement across the room caught my eye. Has Poppy eaten? I'm happy to fill her bowl. Do it before you leave, Cheryl replied dismissively. Then, as if remembering her manners, she added, Thank you for caring for her while I was at the hospital. It was no trouble, really. Kat Valentine helped too. Didn't want to be here alone, huh? Cheryl commented, nailing me to the couch with her glare. I managed a thin smile. I didn't grow up with pets, and Kat offered to help, so... Not that I blame you, she continued, ignoring me. I don't want to be here alone either. Listen, we have an extra bedroom, and we'd be happy to have you while you're recuperating. I looked down at my tea, instantly regretting the offer. I hate thinking of you being trapped in that basement all night. And in excruciating pain, Cheryl added, eyeing me. Your husband is quite the avid trail runner. I guess, I said, unsure of where she was headed. He popped out in my yard a few days ago. Must have gotten turned around, just like you did a while back. She shifted, looking uncomfortable. My husband took up the gym when he started the affair. They think they're so smart. Might as well write, I have a secret, on their foreheads. Tom isn't having an affair, I said, not bothering to hide my aggravation. Of course not, she replied. When would he find the time? It's kind of you to offer your guest room, but my daughters intend to take turns staying overnight until I get this damn cast off, though we'll see if they actually make good on it. I hate that I have to ask them to come back to this house at all, but what are you going to do? It is what it is. The offer stands if you change your mind. We watched the cat lazily flick its tail and sipped our tea in uncomfortable silence. I didn't fall down those stairs, Cheryl finally said in a low voice. I tightened my grip on the mug. Don't look so confused, she snapped. You might think you know what's happening in this neighborhood, but you don't know everything. She watched me for a long moment. You know, I was pretty close with Olive Talbot. How are you sleeping? Not great, I admitted. The scratching or the footsteps are keeping you up at night? We thought maybe Mrs. Talbot was trying to... No, darling, it isn't Olive who's scratching up your attic. She's not the one causing you trouble. I waited for her to go on, but she seemed zoned out, lost in thought. My gaze landed on the fireplace. There were 3 small chalk circles, each with a dot in its center, drawn on the brick just above the hearth. Those circles, I began. Keeps 'em at bay, Cheryl said in a flat voice. At least it used to. Nothing seems to work anymore. Do you think it's the developer? Who? Elwyn Payne and his family, the people buried in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Hell if I know. But I'll tell you one thing, that's no ghost clomping his hooves across my roof every damn night, and it sure as hell wasn't a ghost who pushed me down those stairs. So someone did push you. Not someone, Cheryl corrected. Something. You know, I ran into Olive a couple of days before she died. I was out at the mailbox, and she pulled up alongside in her car, said something about duplicates, that we were all wrong, ghosts weren't the problem. She was about to tell me more when that bastard Grilled Reed came down the road and started haranguing her about her plow guy pushing snow into his driveway. They got into one of their bickers, and I never had the chance to ask her what she meant. I saw Beretta, but it wasn't really her, I admitted. Cheryl nodded. I used to see my husband in those woods. I shivered. So what are they? Cheryl tilted her head. Come on now, Nancy Drew. Use your brain. You really think one pushed you down the stairs? Cheryl put her head back against the chair and closed her eyes. Yeah, that fucker's claws left some nasty scratches on my back. Chapter 41. I breathed in a deep lungful of fresh air the second I stepped outside. The damp, mildewy smell in Cheryl's home reminded me to ask Tom to empty the dehumidifiers in our basement. I didn't want our house smelling anything like that for the party. About halfway home, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I looked down at the screen guiltily before answering. Jesus Christ, you're alive, Angela bellowed. I'm sorry, I've just been so... I'd hoped you'd just gone into one of your hermit modes, she cut in, but with everything you have going on, I got scared. It's so good to hear your voice, I said sincerely. How are you? I'm totally fine. Are you in your house right now? No, I'm just walking back from a neighbor's. Thank God, she breathed. Look, I don't know how to say all of this without just saying it. I found a bunch of articles about your neighborhood and about all the weird tragedies. You read them too. Yup. Okay, well, that makes this a little easier. Makes what easier? You have to move. I know, I laughed. No, I mean, you have to get out of there, like right now. Trust me, I'd love to, but it's a little more complicated than that. Just pack a bag and you and Tom can come and stay with us until you find a place. There's a lot going on here that is absolutely surreal, but I'm not like in immediate danger. Yes, you are, Angela insisted. I just texted you a photo. Open it right now. Immediately overcome with dread, my hand shook as I opened the message. It's the picture of my attic that I sent you, I said, confused. Look in the far back left corner, she instructed. I used my fingers to zoom in and saw what had Angela so worked up. In the shadow of the eaves stood another shadow, a figure hunched over so that the room could accommodate its incredible height. I could hear Angela's voice faintly, and I put the phone back up to my ear. Do you see the horns? She demanded. Yes, I don't know what to do. The neighbors just seem to live with it. Your neighbors' houses are haunted too? Angela nearly shrieked. May, I don't know what the hell you've gotten yourself into, but you need to get out of there. I can't. I'm hosting a Halloween party for the neighborhood this weekend, and do you hear yourself? There's a shadow figure in your house that looks a hell of a lot like a demon, and you're planning a Halloween party? I began to feel my defenses rise. Did she think I didn't know the mess I was in? Did she think I was an idiot? What did she know about being stuck in the suburbs when she sat there in her city townhouse and cushy library job? I'm handling it, I said, barely hiding the anger in my voice. Look, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I was looking over the photos last night after I read those articles and saw the shadow thing, and I'm scared for you. I took in a breath to calm myself down. I appreciate that. I do. It's complicated. I'd been pacing along the road in front of our house, and I stopped at the end of our driveway, startled to see Tom walk out from behind the garage. May, did you hear me? Angela asked. Yeah, I'm sorry. Can I call you back? I only half listened to her answer as I disconnected the call. Tom? I called. What are you doing home? He was bent over, brushing off his legs. Hey there, he said, walking toward me. Where's the car? I asked. The garage. I thought we should get in the habit of parking in there before winter hits. He leaned in to kiss my cheek. What happened to you? I asked, taking in the streaks of dirt on his forearms. He let out a bark of laughter that sounded gratingly forced. I went on a trail run and a tree root got me pretty good. You went for a run in the woods by yourself? I thought of what Cheryl had told me, how Tom exited the trail in her backyard. How often was he going on these runs? Come on, he said, ignoring the question. I'm going to take a shower, and then I need to go back to the office for a couple hours. I'll give you a ride to town, and we can go to dinner later. How's that sound? I hesitated. What is he hiding? I said, I guess I could finish organizing those shelves. Excellent. I thought you were going on one of your bike rides this morning. Oh, I ended up making a batch of brownies and bringing them over to Cheryl's. How is she doing? I was on the edge of telling him everything. Cheryl's belief that a demon shoved her down the stairs, seeing Beretta scurry into those woods, Angela's call in the photo, but his expression stopped me. He was grinning. Her leg is broken, but I think she'll be okay, I managed. What a relief, he replied, turning to jog up the front steps. The back of his t-shirt was caked with mud. That must have been some fall, I commented, following him. As he pushed the door open, he turned to look at me. What? He said, obviously confused. The fall? On your run? Oh, yeah, he replied, turning away. It was brutal. Chapter 42. There she is, Verity exclaimed, coming out from behind the reference desk. You left the other day and didn't even tell us you organized the collection. It was nothing. I just sorted as I went, I replied. Well, the director is thrilled. Once Jeremy officially turns in his resignation, which I think should be within the month, your name will be at the top of the list for his position. Really? Thank you. I was embarrassed to find myself tearing up. None of that, Verity said, putting a hand on my arm. I have bad news, too. Jenny found some more boxes of local materials in a back closet. Oh, okay, no problem. Absolutely zero pressure, but we lugged them upstairs and they're just sitting there, which makes me absolutely twitch, but I'm happy to help. I'd reorganize the entire second floor if it meant I'd have a job by the end of the year. I followed Verity upstairs. I'm sorry, she said, grimacing as she gestured to the 4 moving boxes lining the wall beside the bookshelves. Oh, this is nothing, I replied. Well, wait till you open them, she said, leaning over to lift the tabs on one of the boxes. Inside was a mess of papers, envelopes, and notebooks. Oof, I laughed. Where would you like me to put everything? Verity gestured to a bank of shelves behind us, one of a number that ran parallel down the center of the second floor. We'll keep them here until we get funding for a sister bookcase to put beside the original. She handed me the papers she'd scooped out of the box. Thank you, and absolutely no rush and no pressure. I'll leave you to it. I looked down at the papers in my hand as Verity retreated through the stacks, then sank down into one of the chairs and began flipping through what turned out to be a collection of letters. I began to read the one on top. To Miss Amanda Penning, a shamed daughter of the righteous Albert Penning. The sin that guides you, young lady, is no mystery. Your guiding sin clings to you like a wet sheet, its influence clear to all who lay eyes upon you. 'Tis our enemy, envy, that sunk its claws into your bones and now runs through your blood like a fever. For this you must repent and pray for the strength to endure the punishment that is your only path to redemption. But it would be better to succumb to the brutal penance that awaits you than to allow that blasphemous fiend Leviathan to embrace you one moment more. I pray for your ability to endure the chastening. We share our guiding sin in common. I would not wish the discipline that awaits you upon a mortal enemy. Remain in faith, and you shall overcome. Signed, your brother in earthly torment, Elwyn Payne. Jesus, I murmured. I knelt down and rifled around the contents of the open box and pulled out a small black journal. The binding cracked as I opened it, and the familiar smell of mildew filled my nostrils. The pages held the same compact cursive writing as the letter. I was flipping through the little book when I had the overwhelming sense that I was being watched. Looking over my shoulder, I saw an older woman standing between 2 stacks of books, a friendly smile on her face. Hello, I managed, getting to my feet. Correspondence can be so revealing, Oh, sure, I replied, feeling somehow guilty for reading the private letter. I suppose secrets never can stay buried. I made a noise of agreement. Am I in your way? I asked. Not at all, she assured me, running a hand through her gray curls. Just the opposite, in fact. I find journals to be most valuable when I'm looking for answers. She pointed to the book in my hands. People don't hold back when they think no one else is looking. In the time I took to glance down at the book and then back up, the woman was gone. Stunned, I could do nothing but stand very still. The library was utterly silent around me. Slowly, I shifted to one side, then the other, so I could peer down the rows of shelves, confirming what I already knew. The woman had vanished. Grabbing my jacket off the chair, I forced myself to walk down the aisle. Scurrying down the stairs, I was headed out to the front door when Jenny called my name. May! Oh my gosh, thank you so much for getting us organized. No problem, I managed. I was just about to work on the collection, but I have to go. Sorry. I'm the one who should be sorry for finding those extra boxes. Oh no, totally fine. Verity said you found them in a back closet? Jenny shook her head. No, I shoved them in there weeks ago and forgot about them. I didn't know what to do with them. They were donated by a local woman's estate after she died. I realized she was studying my face. Anyway, she said with a tight smile, I'll let you go, but thank you so much. Do you happen to remember the name of the woman who donated those books? Oh, sure. Same name as my mom's favorite store. Talbot's. Can't remember the first name, though. I didn't realize I was still clutching Elwyn Payne's journal until I was already through the library doors. Chapter 43. We went to dinner at an Italian restaurant in nearby Wellesley. How was the library? Tom asked. He'd been on the phone with a client the entire drive to the restaurant. I sipped my wine before responding. Good. I think I might be in the running for that position that's opening up soon. That's great, he said, but his eyes were on his phone, which he'd arranged beside his plate. I took another sip of wine. I had no intention of telling him that I was pretty certain I'd spoken to the ghost of the woman who'd lived and died in our house. I'd read the journal cover to cover and roasted as I waited for Tom to finish his afternoon and pick me up for dinner. In its pages, I discovered that not only was Elwyn Payne, the developer of our neighborhood, who was currently buried with his family at the center of the cul-de-sac, obsessed with the 7 deadly sins, he was certain that everyone, at some point in their lives, if not many times in their lives, became possessed by the master demons charged with fueling those sins. He firmly believed that his church was the only true church, and it offered the only way to salvation. The Church of Confession and Redemption relied heavily on the rite of exorcism. People sinned, confessed, and were punished in hopes of gaining redemption. But if the punishments didn't work, believers used exorcism to drive the demons back. Not back to hell, mind you. They believed the earth was the devil's domain. They believed humans only had the ability to keep demonic forces just far enough away to stop them from controlling the believer's every waking move. Sprinkled into his fervent rantings were descriptions of his own experiences with the demon Leviathan, who tempted the envious and ruled over them both in hell and on earth. Elwyn claimed to have undergone 18 exorcisms in an attempt to gain the upper hand in the battle for his soul. Olive Talbot had managed to collect Payne's correspondence and journals, then donated them to the library after her death in the same kind of moving boxes that I'd sorted through in our garage, where I'd found the pretty green journals that now sat on the bookshelves in our living room. Olive's journals. "So, what do you think?" Tom asked. Startled out of my thoughts, I could only stare at him. "Your meal," he said, nodding towards my dish. "Do you like it?" "I do," I said quickly, spitting pasta onto my fork. "It's great." After taking a bite, I forced myself to make conversation. "This town is really nice. I love the downtown." Tom glanced around the restaurant. "Looks can be deceiving. No place is perfect." "At least these people aren't worried about their homes being infested with ghosts," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "You can't know that for sure," he pointed out with a smile. Chapter 44. Life rolled relentlessly forward, and the Halloween party was an unavoidable distraction. Aside from Cheryl, who couldn't attend for obvious reasons, every other neighbor accepted my invitation. I stocked the bar and chose sangria as the signature party drink, christening it the Vampirini. I placed a black lace runner down the center of our kitchen table and topped it with fake skulls, oversized hairy spiders, and a sprinkling of votive candles in small glass vases. The kitchen sideboard served as a bar. There, I placed a piece of black sequin fabric beneath the plastic silver trays that held liquor bottles, an ice bucket, and a small bowl for drink garnishes. The doorbell rang promptly at 7. Tom chuckled as I tilted my head far to the side before opening the front door. "Bent neck lady," Kat squealed. She looked over my head to Tom. He wore a dark t-shirt and zip-up hoodie beneath an army green jacket. I'd used gray and blue eyeshadow to create the dark circles beneath his eyes. It took Kat only a moment to realize who he was. "Luke!" she exclaimed. Pleased, I straightened my neck and welcomed Kat and Derek inside. "You guys look amazing. Where did you find those costumes?" "Online," she replied, smoothing the body-hugging Virgin Airlines stewardess uniform. Derek tipped his pilot's cap to me and winked. In spite of myself, I blushed. He handed me a thin rectangular box wrapped in skulls and crossbones. "Housewarming gift," he said playfully. I thanked him and absently placed the present on the kitchen counter, then continued putting the finishing touches on a cheese platter while accepting Kat's compliments about the Halloween decor. It wasn't long before the rest of the neighborhood streamed in, each couple's costumes better than the last. Adam and Evelyn wore regular clothes with strategically placed fig leaves. It's our Halloween go-to. I've lost track of how many times we've done it. Linda and Cornish were the perfect Homer and Marge. It was Tristan's idea. His little girlfriend lent me this wig. And Lucky and Forbes made a spot-on Gatsby and Daisy. I was at the hairdresser's for 2 hours getting these finger waves. There was an aggressive bang at the door, and because Linda was closest, she opened it, then let out a shrill scream. Everyone in the kitchen turned to see her laughing. "Grill, you look far too realistic. Take that mask off before you give someone a heart attack." Grill stepped into the foyer, imposing in gray coveralls, an affectless pale mask over his face. He turned his head to meet everyone's gaze and slowly lifted the machete in his right hand. There was a beat of uncomfortable silence before Adam provided the sound effect. Chee, 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 ha, 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 causing everyone to burst out into nervous laughter. Beretta stood behind her husband, an embarrassed smile on her face. She wore a blue sweater and bell-bottom jeans. An empty container of Activia hung on a string around her neck like a necklace. After an awkward moment, Grill relented and pushed the mask up. I suspected he liked playing the part of the psychotic killer a bit too much. Tom was busy filling drink orders, and I found myself standing beside Beretta. The yogurt container is a brilliant touch. Her hand moved to the homemade necklace. The whole thing was Grill's idea. I hate Halloween. I don't understand why anyone would want to celebrate such a thing. Any excuse for a party, I said awkwardly, the image of Beretta scurrying into the woods playing in my mind. I'm sorry I haven't invited you for coffee. I've just been so consumed with getting the house settled. You've had time to get to know the neighbors quite well. Taken aback, I said, I'm sorry. I hope I haven't offended you. Not at all. What would give you that idea? After a long pause during which I wished Beretta would leave my home and never return, I asked, Are you still working at the hospital? Recalling that Beretta was a nurse. Going on 22 years now. Don't have plans on retiring anytime soon, if that's what you mean. It wasn't. How about you? Beretta interrupted. Are you working? I just started volunteering at the library, actually. I'm helping to sort through some historical documents. Beretta smiled knowingly. Smart girl. Considerate, too. You'll keep your foot in the door, but won't let anyone down too much when you tell them you're pregnant. Last time I checked, I wasn't pregnant, I said, forcing a laugh. Beretta rolled her eyes. I've seen it happen a million times with young nurses. They turn up all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and the next thing I know, I'm covering their shifts for 3 months. It's been at least 10 years since I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I said evenly. You have a daughter, right, in college? What did you do about work when she was little? I stayed home and raised her, Beretta replied indignantly. I know that's not popular nowadays, but I simply couldn't imagine leaving her with a stranger. The idea of daycare was out of the question. Grill wouldn't hear of it. I felt defensive, and I didn't even have children. Kat and Evelyn had babysitters, and their kids appeared healthy and well-adjusted, for the most part anyway. I was about to say as much when I felt a hand on my arm. The twinkle lights on the patio are darling, Lucky cut in. What are you two talking about? Childcare options? I said flatly. Lucky's brow furrowed in confusion. The lights were Tom's idea, I explained, responding to her comment. I think I'll leave them up all year. Beretta craned her neck to peer out the kitchen window. Heading her off at the pass, I added, Don't worry, I'll be sure to turn them off before bedtime so they don't disturb you. Beretta waved away the comment. We never spend time in the yard. You couldn't pay me to go anywhere near those woods. Those coyotes won't bother you, Lucky said dismissively. It's not the coyotes I'm worried about. I thought I saw you back there a few days ago, I said, seizing the chance to bring up the weirdness. You must have been mistaken. No, it was definitely you, I pressed. You looked right at me and then ran straight into the forest. I would never go into those woods. Never. I see all of you headed to that trail all the time. You wouldn't do that if you'd seen what I have. What have you seen? I asked. I don't need to explain myself. I know what I've seen, and if I were you, I would stay away from that trail. Don't be so cryptic, for Christ's sake. What's so awful back there? Lucky asked, not bothering to hide her annoyance. Grill suddenly appeared at his wife's side. Can I speak with you for a moment? Startled, Beretta carefully placed her half-drunk Vampirini on the counter and allowed herself to be led towards the living room, away from the rest of the party. That man gives me the willies, Lucky said in a low voice. I watched her run straight into those woods the other day, and then just a second later I saw her pull into her driveway. It was impossible. Impossible is the best way to describe those people. Creepy and devastatingly boring. Now, tell me what you did to make the sangria. The party grew louder as the bottles on the bar slowly emptied. Eventually, our guests separated into 2 camps. The guys hung out in the kitchen, while the women migrated to the living room in front of a blazing fire. Above the mantel, The Exorcist played silently. We chatted about the next book club selection and laughed over Kat's solo performance at the last get-together. Even Beretta let her guard down, chuckling at Evelyn's impersonation of Kat. Wiping tears of laughter from my eyes, it occurred to me that I hadn't felt so at ease in months. I leaned over to Lucky and said, "You were right. A party is just what this house needed." Lucky winked at me and smiled. Just then, the voices in the kitchen rose. We all quieted, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. We listened as Cornish boomed, "What exactly are you accusing me of, Grill?" Linda stood and moved towards the back hallway. Beretta followed, while the rest of us tried to look as if we hadn't noticed the men's angry words. "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm telling you to stay the hell out of my backyard," Grill spat, matching Cornish's volume. I stood when I heard Tom's attempt to calm the disagreement. As I did, I caught Kat's eye. She rolled her eyes as if the argument between Grill and Cornish were a predictable affair. I smiled back, feeling slightly reassured, but as I entered the kitchen, the relief drained away. Cornish and Grill were squared off in front of the sink, Grill with his finger on Cornish's chest. "Listen to me, lurky little fuck. We won't have a problem unless I see you on my property again, and that includes the woods behind my house." "Grill," Beretta said weakly behind her husband. Linda, who'd positioned herself beside her own husband, spoke up. "Why would he ever go into your yard, Grill? That's absurd." Grill dismissed Linda with a look. "Nice, Cornish. You're so lazy you even got your wife fighting your battles for you." "Grill," Beretta shrilled. The man spun around to look at his wife with frightening intensity. "Do not interrupt me." Tom tried again to calm the tension. He put a hand on Grill's shoulder. "Guys, there's obviously been a misunderstanding." Grill yanked away from Tom's hand and faced him menacingly. "Misunderstanding my ass. I tried to warn you off this place, but you were too stupid to listen." "What the hell are you talking about?" Tom demanded. "I told you this place was a money pit at the cocktail party." "How was that a warning about this neighborhood?" I asked, dumbfounded. He turned his cold gaze on me. "Stop meddling around on that fucking island. You're stirring them up, and thanks to you, we haven't slept in a week." He slammed his beer bottle down on the Formica with a crack. "Beretta, we're leaving." Beretta obediently followed him to the front door. She turned and quietly said, "Thank you for having us," then stepped out into the night behind Grill and gently closed the door behind them. It was Derek who broke the silence. "Were you really sneaking around their backyard?" Cornish held up his hands in defense. "Why the hell would I go anywhere near that guy's property? I want nothing to do with that asshole." "Then who did he see back there?" Evelyn asked. "I saw Beretta run into the woods," I offered, earning a look from Tom. "We all use the trail," he said, his tone too reasonable for my liking. "Grill probably just saw someone on the footpath and freaked out." "That man is a ticking time bomb," Lucky said dismissively as she filled a wine glass with sangria. She held it out to me, and I accepted it with a shaky hand. "Whoever you saw run into those woods, it wasn't Beretta Reed," Linda said knowingly. "I don't know what she saw back there, but whatever it was scared the hell out of her." Chapter 45. The whole exchange put a damper on the party atmosphere. Soon after the Reeds' dramatic departure, Adam and Evelyn left to relieve their nanny, and the Russ were the next to go. "Thanks for a great night, May," Cornish enthused, red-faced from alcohol. Linda thanked us and ushered her husband to the door, but as they stepped out onto the front stoop, Cornish turned back. "Oh, I meant to tell you, that mask was a great touch." "What mask?" Tom said, confused. "The demon mask," Cornish guffawed. "I looked over at the bathroom window and got so scared I lost my aim for a second. I almost peed all over your powder room floor." "I don't know what made you lose your aim, but it wasn't me," Tom said, laughing along. "Oh, okay, man," said Cornish with an exaggerated wink. "Then it must have been a demon peeping on me while I took a whiz." Linda slapped his arm. "Cornish, gross." "Anyway, great party. Happy Halloween, Mr. and Mrs. Kane," Cornish called over his shoulder. "Did you put a mask in the window to scare people?" I asked as Tom shut the door. He shook his head. "You saw how drunk that guy is. He's probably just trying to freak us out." We topped off our drinks and joined Kat, Derek, Lucky, and Forbes in the living room. "But that's why it's so scary," Kat was saying, referring to the movie playing on the television. "You never really see anything happen." "Until she pukes up pea soup," Derek pointed out. "Right, but it's the lead-up that gets me every time. The noises in the attic, the bed shaking. The stuff at the end is just too over the top." "Maybe the subtle stuff freaks you out because it feels so familiar," Forbes suggested, swirling the wine in his glass. Here we go, muttered Lucky. Ignoring her, Forbes continued, I swear, I'm going to walk out into our garage one day and find a guy slamming 2x4s against the wall. The second I open the door, all is quiet. Lucky aimed a cautioning look at her husband. You've had too many Vampirinis. It's different in our house, said Kat. We hear pacing. It doesn't matter what room you're in. It's always next door or overhead, but whenever we get up the nerve to check, it's always the same. Nothing, no one. It's got to be those dead people you guys found in the middle of the cul-de-sac, Derek said with a smirk. How did you think to go out there anyway? I found the plan for our cul-de-sac at the library, I explained, feeling a little defensive. I told you that, Kat said to her husband, her brow furrowed. Yeah, I know. I'm just shocked no one's gone out there to check the place out before, especially one of the Gulliver's hellions. Strange, isn't it? You two moved to the neighborhood and all the knocks and bangs and stomps in the night get stirred up around here, and then you stumble upon a cemetery none of us knew about. Had we known about those knocks and bangs, we might not have moved into this house at all. I'm not accusing you two, just calling out the coincidence of it, Derek replied evenly. It began to ramp up before you moved in, Lucky said reassuringly, around the time Mrs. Talbot passed away. Forbes turned to face his wife straight on. See, you do still notice it. I'd never claimed otherwise. I just think it's best to ignore it, Lucky replied, smoothing the tassels on her dress. Nothing good comes of giving it any attention. Hold on, Derek slapped a hand to his forehead. I almost forgot about your housewarming gift. Where is it? I think I left it on the kitchen counter, I said, embarrassed I hadn't opened the gift immediately. Derek disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a skull and crossbone-covered package. Open it, he said, handing it to Tom, who promptly passed it to me. I recognized the box before I'd completely torn off the wrapping paper. I'd played the board game at sleepover parties when I was young, always suspecting my friends were pushing the planchette around to spell their crushes' names. Tom laughed nervously. A Ouija board? I haven't seen one of those in years, said Forbes. Kat giggled. Should we play? Lucky shot her a disbelieving look. Absolutely not. What if we could actually get some answers about what's happening in this neighborhood? Derek argued. And what if we stir everything up and make it 1,000 times worse by interacting with it? Lucky shot back. Forbes put his arm around his wife's shoulders. Oh, come on, what's the worst that could happen? Why don't you watch that movie and then you tell me? Lucky replied, pointing to the television. No one here is possessed as far as I can tell. All we have is a bunch of noisy ghosts, said Derek. What do you guys think? Kat asked, looking at Tom and me. We exchanged a look of apprehension. Tom shifted in his seat. I don't know, guys. Even if it is just a bunch of scratching and doors opening and closing by themselves, that's my threshold for creepy. But it's more than that, I said. He looked at me, confused and maybe a little annoyed. I pulled my phone from my pocket and scrolled through my photos. Look in the back corner, I instructed, handing him the phone. His brow furrowed as he studied the picture. Kat held out her hand. Let us see, too. Those are definitely horns, Forbes said when the phone made it to him. Even more of a reason not to try and contact that thing, Tom reasoned. Then to me, why didn't you show me this? I didn't want to add to your stress. Though the truth was, I didn't want to listen to him try and explain away what was clearly a photo of a demonic figure in our attic. The same attic we heard footsteps and scratching, where he'd seen a huge horned demon at the bottom of those stairs. I'm not interested in hearing anything that thing has to say, Lucky commented. But what if we could get some answers, I pointed out. I think Olive Talbot's here, too. I say we go for it, said Forbes. What do we have to lose? You can't be serious, Lucky scoffed. Let's put it to a vote, suggested Derek. Raise your glass if you want to contact the spirits creeping around our houses. He raised his beer. Forbes, Kat, and I followed suit. Tom and Lucky wore matching looks of concern. I put a hand on Tom's leg. We don't have to. It's just an idea. We voted and the nays lost, Derek declared happily. Let's open that bad boy up. He grabbed the game off the coffee table and peeled away the cellophane wrapping. After giving the instructions a once-over, he said, Cool. All we have to do is make sure we close the session by moving the planchette over the word goodbye. He continued reading. Oops, looks like we're supposed to be sober. Close enough, chuckled Forbes. Where should we do it? The attic? Derek suggested with a grin. Hell no, said Lucky. Tom pointed to the coffee table. Why not right here? What about the basement? Kat suggested. Near the Keystone. That guy who built everything put those in, right? Maybe if we're close to something he touched, we could get through to him and find out what the hell he was thinking building this place. It occurred to me that Derek and Kat had put some thought into this so-called housewarming gift. I hate the basement, I said. Gives me the creeps. We all hate our basements, Forbes pointed out, but Kat probably has a point. I was suddenly consumed with dread. What if Lucky was right and ignoring the haunting was for the best? Now, not only were we going to pay it lots of attention, but we were going to try to interact with it, and that felt like a very bad idea. Speaking of doing it right, Forbes said, looking down at his watch, it's after midnight. It's officially Halloween. The veil is thin, as they say. Could you be any more dramatic, darling? Lucky groaned. She pushed Forbes' arm off her shoulders and stood. If you're hell-bent on doing this, I need a refill. Maybe that's not a good idea, said Kat. The rules say you shouldn't be intoxicated. I can't imagine doing this any other way, Lucky replied, heading towards the kitchen. A Ouija board on Halloween in a horrendously haunted house? It's my ideal for a cozy horror story, honestly. But it's a terrible idea for these characters, and we'll find out just how bad it gets next week. Thank you so much for listening. And if you're looking for a more audiobook-style experience with all of my intro, outro chatter, head over to Patreon. At the $4 a month level, you'll get the cul-de-sac plus my monthly Patreon exclusive podcast, Dead Time, where Kristen of Guide to the Unknown podcast and I discussed reality ghost hunting television in all its messy glory. For the best place, I'm having the hardest time with this. For the best place to stay updated, please join me on Instagram. I wish I could find a better way. That Zuckerberg weirdo is a real freak, but I haven't sorted a comparably effective way to reach everyone yet. So that's that for the meantime. All right, I'll see you here next week.